In 1851, this Fairfield Park was actually not filled with trees, but it was used as a burial ground. I'm up here at the top of the South Island in Nelson, standing in the bush in the middle of town, or just on the north part. And yeah, you might think this would be full of flowers, and there's some, but it's the ones carved in stone that I'm here to have a look at today. So let's go have a wander around and see what's left in these trees. So this place was a burial ground from 1851 until 1910. And as soon as you come into the centre of the park, it's pretty clear there used to be probably quite a few burials. In fact, there's 78 that I'm aware of, although many of the grave markers are broken or they didn't actually have any in the first place. But there's definitely some. And a lot of them look pretty unreadable, but some of them are still quite clear. This would have been where some of the early colonial settlers are buried. And some of them were probably quite prominent names. Let's see if we find any. I mean, straight away you're going to see the same kinds of things you see in other colonial cemeteries, and honestly it never gets easier to see this stuff. But check this one here. You've got Frederick, aged 3 weeks. George, aged 2 years. Arthur, 2 years and 3 weeks. Charles, aged 7. Edwin, aged 6 months. Just crushing stuff, that, right? I'm not completely sure. They might have all been from the same family, but there's also a chance there that, looking at the dates so close together, I mean, well, sometimes people did lose all their children within a very close proximity of each other, but they might have even just been from friends, you know, friends' children being memorialized there. I'm not quite sure. But it is a lovely wee park. I've been in a place similar to this before. Jane Ching on the screen. Looks like the letters have come off this one, but someone's come and placed a plaque on it. Let us know that this is the Walmsley family's plot. Yeah, the first video I made was of a park that had been converted into a cemetery, and that one is more like this, where none of the grave markers are actually in the centre of the park, but there are some where they're just sort of scattered around all the way throughout still, or where they're completely gone. But this and the other one I visited was St David's Park in Hobart, and there I do have a video on that you can check out. It does still have some around the bushy area. We might have a quick look over here though, see something. Got a bit of an information board tells us the story here of what was once the Trafalgar Street Cemetery, now Fairfield Park. And straight away there you see the Copenhagen to Fairfield. It tells us that story, that this is what we now recognise as a historic colonial cemetery, but really a cemetery of migrants from the other side of the world. And back then they would have brought their beliefs and customs and put them on display here. Looking at it, this might be the grave marker here that was on that board too. I don't know if you can hear the cicadas, but they're pretty deafening to me. So loud. Lovely though. Go up around. Bit of running foot. Obviously these grave markers have fallen over. But yeah, this looks like the one from the board down there. Quite dark on my camera here, but certainly the fences on these are really good. Probably what in some cases actually protected some of these graves would have been the fact that they had these big metal fences. You can see there the road is right next to the bush, so basically this area, like the board showed before, would have been on the outskirts of town at one point, and it's up on a hill, so probably not in as much demand to be used, and it became a burial ground. It's great again, you see that displays of ethnicity and the proclamations, I suppose, of your homeland. But also this monument here, this is an awesome one actually. The one that, yes, is completely faded, but fortunately we have a newer version thereof. As you have that proclamation for William Gordon Bell, if the name doesn't give it away enough, of being Scottish, and of course it says there Dumfries, Scotland. But you also have what would have been his wife and infant daughter is memorialised, but his wife there was born in the West Indies, and it shows that, I guess, the breadth of what was then the British Empire, let alone the fact that we're here on the other side of the world right now. Oh, look at those mushrooms. Gotta love the different flora and fauna in the cemetery. I suppose that's where this is a bit unique, with the bush just growing like this in a park, and this kind of repurposing of a burial ground lets things like that happen. Mushrooms do love to feed on death and decay and bring new life therefrom. So these guys arrived 1842, so not that long after the Treaty of Waitangi was signed, and It's actually Waitangi Day here tomorrow, so maybe a good time to be having a look here. There's actually more grave markers than I was expecting to find, I would say. The interesting grave that drowned, I'd say, is for the two above. They must have both been drowned, and that is somewhat fondly, shall we say, known as the New Zealand death, or it was. That it was really common for people to drown in the waterways around New Zealand, Aotearoa. Oh, what an interesting wee park. Which way shall I go? Let's try this way. If nothing else, you get to have a nice walk through what looks to be a mixture of native and introduced trees. Some very loud insects. There are birds here, but basically the cicadas are drowning them out. And I do think there was another interesting monument up on the hill here. Whether or not people were originally interred down there, I'm not sure, but most likely most of this land would have had burials. In fact, that's the way I came in. I'm going to go back up the hill. Here we go. Oh. Bit of exercise. Whew. Right. Back up to Neil McVicker, nursery man. Interesting. Came from Bath, but was actually from Glasgow originally. Amazing. Pretty fitting that the nurseryman there is at the entrance to this lovely bush-filled park that once was a cemetery.